What do you tend to think about most when you're not intentionally trying to think about something?
I tend to think about people. Um, I tend to replay conversations in my head. I tend to, I think in terms of trajectories, mine or other people's. Um, yeah. So
Yeah.
people and incidents and conversations and trajectories and
What do you tend to think about most when you're not intentionally trying to think about something?
What do I tend to think about most? Oh, wait. When I'm
So,
when I'm trying not to think about something, what do I think about?
or even when you're not really trying to think about something, you're just sort of being or doing things and you're not actually trying to think about something, what kinds of things tend to pop up in your head that you end up thinking about?
Well, I think it depends sort of if what kind of mood I'm in. I mean, if I'm in maybe more realistic mood, I think about our president and the climate, and I'm worrying a lot about whether the election will actually be a real election. Trying to figure out if that means, like, as someone who's born and raised in America, like, do I stay and fight in some way, or do I leave the country? So that ends up popping up a lot. It's messing with for the first time, my sense of identity around being an American is like being messed with in some way. So it's kind of hard to, like, I guess, articulate, but it's definitely like affecting me in a way I hadn't expected. So yeah, so my head pops into thinking about that kind of stuff a lot. And then when I'm sort of more just wanting to be happy or whatever, I just tend to talk about the dog. I mean, there's not a lot to be happy about right now, so I just like totally was like, oh, she did this and she did this. It's like 80% of my conversations with my partner is like, also the dog did this, because when we try and talk about the news, it's like, okay, well, nothing is good. Back to the dog. Yeah, so I would say those are the things. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you tend to think about most when you're not intentionally trying to think about something?
Nothing in particular, and I don't find this stream of consciousness particularly interesting or meaningful. Basically, I don't take it seriously. I think of it as roughly as rolling out an internal language model, an internal generative model. And to me, it has roughly the level of significance of just rolling out a pre-trained language model. Basically, I think this chatter in our minds, well, at least in my mind, this chattering of the idle mind, it seems like a maintenance function. Basically, I don't think it's particularly interesting or insightful. It seems to be doing something akin to rehashing past experiences, rolling out possible futures, simulating possible variants of past experiences, how a past experience could have gone if a different decision was made. And so it reminds me a bit of techniques that we use to train AI systems. It reminds me a bit of experience replay and basically rolling out an internal dynamics model for training. That is my closest model for what happens in the mind when it's idle. And I basically don't find it particularly interesting and don't take it particularly seriously.
Hmm.
There is one circumstance in which I found these idle thoughts to lead to something useful. And that is a circumstance that I noticed and do try to intentionally cultivate and recreate. And that is that sometimes I get good ideas about my work. And since that's very important, I tried to figure out when that is more likely to happen and whether I can increase the probability of it happening. And the circumstance in which I can elicit this pretty reliably is when I'm in nature, usually when I hike, or generally when I'm in nature, and I do not try to think about work. In fact, the most likely circumstance, or at least what I do to try to create this, is when I read up on a technical topic that I'm interested in, on a challenging technical problem or a project that I want to make progress on. I read up on it, I read up everything, I load all the raw material into my mind, and then I go on a hike and I do not think about it. I don't try to think about it. I enjoy the scenery. I let my mind relax and wander. And sometime during the hike, it just strikes me. I make progress. I get great ideas.
Yeah. 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 What do you think about most when you're not intentionally trying to think about something?
A white wall. Let's see. What do I think most? I'm always thinking about something. I have to say that I have a very noisy head. There is always something. And normally there are like multiple things in parallel, and if one stops, there are the other ones that come. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think there is one single thing, or at least I cannot pinpoint it right now. I mean, right now probably it's just the fact that I would like to go to Spain and then spend some time there. So that's the one thing that maybe I'm thinking more about right now.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. What do you tend to think about most when you're not intentionally trying to think about anything? What do you tend to think about most when you're not intentionally trying to think about anything?
My messy love life.
Okay. What do you tend to think about when you're not intentionally trying to think about something?
Well, I think I think about sort of the world and politics and all of that, and where we are and where we are going in the 21st century.
Yeah.
So I think I do actually worry about things like climate change and the state of the political state of the world. I think we seem to be, I don't know, right now I think we are in a pessimistic phase. It's strange because maybe 10, 20 years ago, I think we had reason to be optimistic. I think the Cold War was over, so the risk of nuclear holocaust wasn't there. I think that globalization had a big positive impact. I mean, billions of people were pulled out of poverty. I mean, in China, Southeast Asia, India, bits of Africa. And overall, the trend was that, yes, a smaller fraction of the world was going hungry. Okay? And now I think we are in a phase where we are kind of retreating from globalization. Nationalist tendencies are coming to the fore in many countries. I think not, don't want to pick any one country for that. And I think we are not dealing with the fears of climate change, the issues of climate change. So there are very bad scenarios we could think about, right, of the world. So that does bother me. And in these times, what happens is that extremists take over, and extremists could be of the left or extremists could be of the right. Maybe extremists of the right are more ascendant now. But these are slightly strange times we live in.
Yeah.
I mean, 2020 is a very strange year.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to make predictions in these kinds of times. Like, I don't know what the world will be in 2025. So the variance is very high of what the world could be in 2025.
Yeah.
I can imagine very positive things and I can imagine very negative things. And it's just that, like, there would be some previous times where we would not have expected this uncertainty. Like in 1995, what you expected to see in 2000, what you would have predicted would have been how it turned out. Right? Looking 5 years out, you could have been you would have made predictions which would have been reasonably close to the truth. And in 2020, can you make predictions about what 2025 will be as being? I think we can, we will, but how confident can you be about that?
Right. Makes sense. What do you tend to think about most when you're not intentionally trying to think about something?
So I would say, unfortunately, probably like the last thing that I have been doing or working on, like I have a very hard time disconnecting with whatever the last thing I was doing or whatever sort of ongoing challenge I have. I wish I was better at this, and this is why I think working out is really useful to me, is that when I do this, somehow, for some reason, I don't have these thoughts coming back about, oh yeah, there's this challenge right now, or this issue, or this ongoing problem that I'm focusing on. And that's a thing I feel is probably limiting the ability for me to take on like bigger challenges. It's just that if I not being able to just say, okay, well, yes, there's this problem right now, but it will get solved, or with time it'll be all right. I am more of the type of like, it will keep there as an echo in my head, and so if I'm not actively doing something else, that will probably come back and start taking a lot of my consciousness at whatever moment. So yeah, I'd say probably like whatever last main problem that I'm supposed to address, unfortunately, is going to be the thing I'll go back to.
Yeah. What do you tend to think about most when you're not intentionally trying to think about something?
When I'm not thinking about anything, for me, it'll be like the moment when I'm going out for a walk or a jog or something like that, when I'm just kind of, and sometimes I listen to podcasts, but other times I'm just clearing my mind. I spend a lot of time these days just thinking about work, about FAIR, about what is, how to help a research organization like this be productive, how to support it through kind of a growth phase, how to connect it to the company, how to stay relevant on research. All of that tends to be kind of bigger strategic questions that I don't know how to resolve. I haven't really been trained to think about. And so every day I show up and I don't really know how to do this, and kind of a mix of instinct and learning and observing other people. And a lot of that work for me just kind of needs to to sit and brew, whereas other types of work I'll do in a more focused way. But that's the work these days that tends to.
Yeah. What do you tend to think about most when you're not intentionally trying to think about something?
Geez. Climate change. What's going to happen in the world over the next 50 to 100 years? Yeah, that kind of weighs on me.
What do you tend to think about when you're not intentionally trying to think about something?
Well, I love looking at things. I love looking at nature. And for a lot of time, I would kind of look around and try to see how to turn everything I looked at into a camera. But yeah, I just love visual phenomena and how the world shows up.
What do you tend to think about when you're not intentionally trying to think about something?
I think nothing interesting. I think it's about whatever has happened most recently. So if I had a conversation with someone and then I'm off to doing something else, but not trying to think about something, I would like bits of those conversation would reiterate in my mind. So whatever I had done most recently, those things would just pop up again.
Yeah. What do you tend to think about when you're not intentionally trying to think about something?
I think about music. So I listen a lot to music, just in my off time when I'm not watching TV. And so when I'm not thinking, I usually have whatever song I last heard playing in my head.
Yeah. What do you tend to think about when you're not intentionally trying to think about something?
These days, it's very unusual that I'm not doing something that I'm scheduled to do or supposed to be doing. So, I mean, I think if there's one thing, I'm looking forward to someday having time to get bored and to think about nothing again.
Yeah.
But if I'm running, for example, I would tend to think about either some kind of research problem or some problem at the company or something like that, some recent issue that has come up.
What do you tend to think about when you're not intentionally trying to think about something?
Yeah, I think now my mind was always so active. There's always, right, and it's such a beautiful thing if you think about your mind and how far AI is from that. Because, there have been cases where I've had ideas of proof come in my dreams, or in the shower, right? So I used to be in this constant thinking mode, even if sometimes it's subconscious of the problems I'm working on. And these days, it's, again, trying to maybe sometimes disconnect from this, right? And having, again, the yoga and meditation is saying, no, don't do it. Right? You don't need to always have this super hyperactive mind.
Yeah.
And just kind of try to have nothingness.
Yeah.
And that's so hard. I never could meditate as a kid, I was always just too much bouncing around. And even as an adult, it's hard for me. I really honestly cannot meditate more than, say, a few minutes. Some people I've heard do for hours, I cannot. But at least I'm trying now this new experiment of not thinking. And that's hard.
Yeah. What do you tend to think about when you're not intentionally trying to think about something?
I think my mind actually goes blank. I basically am breathing and I just defocus, and I think my thoughts stop being very conscious. When I'm going to sleep at night, I tend to see I actually tend to see a lot of martial arts forms in my body moving in various ways and to try to improve in ways that I'd like to. So it's kind of like using my subconscious to hopefully get better.
Yeah.
But I find that to be, I think it's a habit that I've learned because it's the opposite side is to kind of always be reflecting back in a conscious way on the things that have happened in the past. I think that pulls me away from being in the present. So I don't really want to think about the past or the future too much. I really want to be here now.
Yeah, yeah. What do you tend to think about when you're not intentionally trying to think about something?
I mean, I think as I go throughout the day, I'll sometimes have, you know, a particular issue or problem or thing that I'm trying to figure out how to solve, and I'll just kind of think about that as I'm, you know, doing something else, you know, going for a run or biking or cutting up cucumbers or whatever, and thinking about something. You got to be careful not to cut your fingers off as you're thinking too much.
Yeah, yeah. What do you tend to think about most when you're not intentionally trying to think about something?
Think about it. I usually would, I don't know, like creating toys. Yeah, so my wife and I will make some toys for the kids. Sometimes I will look for ideas to, for example, yeah, I can show you an example. Like we made this. So by the way, my room is already a playground now. So
wow, that is quite extensive.
Yeah. And then you can see that there's a dinosaur that we made from a game box. We have made this dice, something like that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So I thought when you said, when you were saying toys, I thought they would be like small things or something, but this is quite big and wow.
Yeah, but it's fun to make them, and as I love it when they like it.
Yeah. That's great.